parte de Puerto Rico. Esta bomba yo la dedico a toda mi gente de Puerto Rico.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Jeff and Joe's Puerto Rican Kitchen, where we show you how to make easy, authentic Puerto Rican recipes. Today, we're making pastelillo de pollo, or roughly translated chicken turnovers. Now, a couple weeks ago, we made pastelillo de queso, or just cheese-filled ones, and we used the pre-made dough, the rico de Goya, as some people call them. And so we made those. They're super easy to do that way, but some people asked if we could do it from scratch. And we were like, yeah, sure. They're super easy to do from scratch, so we're gonna do that today, everything from scratch. Now, before I go forward, I wanna like talk a little bit about the name, right? So we're calling them pastelillo, but if you look elsewhere, I'm sure you're gonna see at least 4 different names. There's empanadas, there's empanadillas, there's pastelillos, and there's pastelitos. So you're probably thinking like, what are all these names? And the honest answer is that like, nobody agrees. Growing up in Puerto Rico, I basically thought of pastelillos and empanadillas as like the same thing. But then I talk to other people now and they're like super adamant that they're completely different, that like it's just 2 worlds apart. And then you look online and people use the words basically interchangeably. You know, I think there's probably like a couple different things that change. There's like what you fill them with. Big differences are meat versus like sweet things. Then there's how you crimp the edges. Some people use a fork, whereas other people kind of like push it together. And then there's questions about, do you bake them? Is the dough fluffier or like tighter? So I'm gonna use them interchangeably, and I'm sure some people are gonna get mad. There's gonna be comments below about how they're like 2 different things, and honestly, that's like a whole different video. But we're just gonna use them interchangeably. Apologies in advance if you're offended. That's just kind of how I grew up. And we're gonna be doing them stuffed with chicken. So let's talk about what's in them. So first, right, we're not using the pre-made dough. Honestly, like that's super easy and I use it all the time, so no worries. But if you wanna make from scratch, 4 ingredients. There's flour, just all-purpose flour. There's some ice water, some vegetable shortening, and a little bit of salt. Super easy to make. We'll show you guys how to do that real quick. And then for the stuffing today, we're gonna be making a shredded chicken stuffing. Super easy as well and very delicious. We're gonna put all of this basically in the Instapot and just boil it down. So we got some chicken breast, a little water, then we got some peppers, some cilantro, some onions, some garlic, and some tomatoes. You'll recognize this as like the components of sofrito. You could just use sofrito if you wanted, but I'm just gonna use this all fresh just because I think it tastes better fresh than kind of cut up and waiting for a while. Then we're gonna season it with a little adobo, some white pepper and cumin, a little achiotte oil for color, a little butter for creaminess, and then some fresh thyme out of the garden. Again, all of this just in the Instapot, cook it down until the chicken's shredded and real soft, and then we'll stuff that into our dough, and we're gonna fry it up, and it's gonna be amazing. You guys are gonna love it. So let's get cooking.
Let's start by preparing our pastelillo dough, since it will need to rest for about 1 hour in the refrigerator. In your food processor, combine your flour and salt. Then add your chilled shortening and blend until it forms the consistency of loose sand. It's important to chill your shortening before adding, because this helps prevent it from melting while you're working with it, resulting in a flakier pastelillo. If you don't have a food processor, you can use a pastry knife or a fork to cut in the shortening. That said, I've had the best results with a food processor, which is why I'm using that method here. Once blended, dump your flour shortening mixture into a bowl and slowly add 1 cup of ice water little by little until it forms a loose dough. Again, it's important to use ice water as we want to keep the dough as cold as possible to prevent the shortening from melting. Depending on your flour, you may need to add a couple tablespoons more or less of water. Just keep adding until the dough sticks together. Once your mixture starts to form a dough, turn it out onto a clean surface and knead it until the liquid is evenly distributed. Be careful not to over-knead it though, as it can make the dough tough. The dough should be tight yet flaky and have the consistency of a pie crust. Now shape your dough into a rectangle and cut it into 16 roughly even pieces. Loosely shape each piece into a ball and transfer them to a clean plate. Once shaped, cover the dough balls with plastic wrap to lock in the moisture and let them rest in the refrigerator for 1 hour. While your dough is resting, let's make our chicken filling. Start by dicing your veggies, your tomatoes, your onions, your peppers, your garlic, and your cilantro. Once your veggies are prepped, add them to your Instapot and then add the rest of the ingredients, including your achiotte oil, your butter, your adobo, your white pepper and cumin, and your thyme leaves. Then go ahead and add your chicken breast on top of your veggies. Adding your chicken on the top ensures that it won't stick to the bottom and burn. Then add a cup of water to the Instapot and put on the lid. Since we want this to cook quickly, we're going to set the vent option to sealing, so the Instapot acts basically like a pressure cooker. Now turn it on to the meat stew setting for 30 minutes. At the end of the 30 minutes, open the vent and release the pressure in the Instapot. Once you can take off the top, the chicken should be thoroughly cooked and soft enough to shred it with a fork. Go ahead and shred the chicken, then turn your Instapot back on for another 15 minutes without the top on. This is just to boil off some of the liquid. Now back to the pastelillo dough. After the hour is up, take out your dough balls and flatten them into discs about 6 to 8 inches wide. There's no one right way to roll out the dough balls, so I'll show you a couple of ways. First, a lot of people like to put the dough between layers of wax paper and roll them out that way. This makes cleanup easy, but can be a little unwieldy since the wax paper might slide around on the table. If you are going to use the wax paper method, I found that first using a flat Pyrex to flatten our dough balls is a good place to start and makes it a little easier to get a nice round shape. If you aren't a fan of the wax paper, you can also just roll it out on a clean surface. Your dough shouldn't be too sticky, but if it is, considering adding just a little bit of flour to the surface to prevent it from sticking. After your discs are formed, move them to a clean plate and layer them with additional wax paper to prevent them from sticking to each other. By the time all your discs are shaped, your chicken should be cooled down enough to handle. So let's go ahead and put our pastelillos together. Place your disc on a flat surface and add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of the chicken. Make sure to shake off any excess liquid from your chicken as you add it. Once your chicken is in place, fold over your pastelillo dough to form a half moon shape. Then press down on your empanadilla to remove any air trapped in the filling and to seal the edges. Finally, use a fork to crimp the edges, working your way around the whole edge on both sides of the pastelillo. Now repeat this process with the rest of your dough balls. Put down your disc, add your filling, press out any excess air, and then seal the edges. Now I typically use a fork to seal the edges of my pastelillos, but it's also very common to roll the edges closed. This is the way it's typically done for larger pastries and makes it much more likely that someone would call them an empanadilla or an empanada. To make this shape, after you've folded your dough in half, roll the edges back towards the center of the dough and then use your fingers to pinch the dough together, forming a series of bumps around the outside edge. Make sure to pinch firmly so the dough doesn't come apart as you are frying it. Once all of your pastelillos or empanadillas or empanadas or pastelillos, whatever, you get it. Once they're all shaped, let's go ahead and fry them. Add enough oil in a large pot to completely cover your pastelillos and heat it up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Once hot, Add your pastelillos to your oil. They should immediately start bubbling. If not, the oil's not hot enough yet. Then go ahead and fry your pastelillos. I like to flip my pastelillos throughout the frying process in order to ensure an even cook. Also, because it ensures that both sides of the pastelillo stay hot throughout the cooking process, it minimizes the absorption of oil. Cook your pastelillos until they are golden brown on both sides. Then remove them and place them on a plate lined with paper towel. Once cool enough to handle, dig in.
So there we go, Pastelillo de Pollo. So you guys saw it, super easy to make. I think the Cuisinart, the food processor, super important. I've tried this a lot in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't quite come out quite the same without the food processor. So the one thing I've noticed is that I feel the real key to a good empanadilla are those little bubbles all over the skin that you see. And that's kind of where, as I understand it, the lamination from the fat mixing with the flour creates some space, and then the water that evaporates swells it up. So that's real clutch. You know, I got a lot of great bubbles all over here. I've tried it other ways without the food processor, and it's a little bit flatter. You just get like a real smooth surface, which I'm not crazy about. This is kind of how I experienced them as kids, and how I always like think of them as just being this like bubbly brown, crunchy deliciousness. And so these are just like I imagined them. Real crisp. The other thing that you'll notice is that they kind of create this layer. So the outside layer that crisps up separates from the inside layer that stays nice and soft and holds the meat. That's another thing to look out for when you're making them, and that's a sign of a great shell. So these are cooked. Yummy. So with the cheese ones, you don't get this as much, but with the chicken ones, because there's more moisture in the chicken, if you let them sit out too long after they're hot, they'll get a little less crispy. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, if you're thinking about kind of making these in advance, you can do it a number of ways. A great way to keep them is just to make the balls of dough and then freeze the balls of dough. If you want, you can also kind of roll them out and then form them into actual empanadillas and then freeze them like that. A lot of people do that. So either one's perfectly fine. The only thing would put a piece of wax paper in between them whenever you're storing them. That'll make it a lot easier to kind of separate out later. So again, hope you guys liked it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share it with your friends. We really want to get the word out about how great Puerto Rican food is, so you can do your part. And then come back again next week and join us for another episode of Jeff and Joe's Puerto Rican Kitchen.